Good morning, everyone. We woke up early this morning and we decided we were going to make some bagel breakfast sandwiches. We've got some homemade sourdough bagels, and then we have some of our moose meat on there, which I kind of made into sausage. We're going to put some red onions on them, a little bit of this mayonnaise that Ariel made the other day, and then I'm going to fry up a few eggs. We've got a few things to do today, and the main thing is prepping our high tunnel for this growing season. We're going to finish breakfast, we're going to eat, and we're going to load up our trailer and go pick up some supplies.
These breakfast sandwiches turned out awesome. Eric did a great job. We're going to save the rest of them for later today for snacking, and we're going to head out.
So what we're doing today is we are on our way to a local brewery, and we're going to be picking up their spent grains, which is barley. We got a little more of a drive till we're there, but we want to show you guys this really cool spring that you can come to, and you can get fresh water here. So it's a really cool spot. You can come get your water. When we first moved here and we didn't have our well, we came here quite a few times and filled up all of our jugs. And a lot of people around here, they don't have wells, so this is a good resource, and a lot of people use this just for filling up their drinking water, their showering water, whatever they need water for.
That should be good, right? Okay, so we got this spent barley and we are headed to get some hay or straw because we are also cleaning out the chicken coop today.
Okay, we made it back to the cabin. We're gonna get all these spent grains, or most of them, loaded into the high tunnel. We're gonna be putting it on the 3 rows we have in there, and the rest of it's gonna be going in the chicken coop for them to eat. And I need to get some of the ice chipped around the door of the greenhouse to see if we can get it open wide enough to get the wheelbarrow in there.
Smells like about taking the posts out? Well, it's hard because they occupy good space, but they were nice to trellis some stuff around.
Yeah. I think if we're going to get them out, we can cut this cut them.
Okay, so we're bringing in all the spent barley, and it's clearly, you know, causing some humidity in here, which is fine. It's just warming up. We are spreading it, and I'm realizing that these strings are getting in my way, as well as some of the green bean vines that I didn't take down last year. So I'm going to get this high tunnel cleaned up while we're in here, and then the next thing we have to do is clean out the chicken coop.
You know what? Oh, here comes my friend. She's going for the sandwich.
So we're going to be switching things up quite a bit in the high tunnel this year. Last year we had our tomatoes on the north side, and we are moving those over to the south side. And that's because I want them to have as much heat and sun. I think that's going to really help them with ripening. We're going to be keeping peppers in the middle, but pretty much making the whole row in the middle peppers. Super excited for that. This row will be things that trellis. I'll have cucumbers, green beans, we'll have tomatillos, eggplants. We're going to try some okra too. And one thing I did this year is I tried to focus on varieties that don't need to be trellised. So we have lots of determinate tomatoes, and then I have some shorter growing green beans, not the kind that continue to grow really tall. Last year we had pretty much everything tried to grow to the middle of the high tunnel, and it was really difficult for me to kind of manage everything, and that's why there's all these strings as I was tying everything up. So we're going to leave the base strings, which is like a zigzag, and then I'm just going through and pulling these off, and I just loosely put these on last year, so most of them are just pulling right off like this, and I'm going to save all of it.
So this is the first year with the greenhouse, and so far so good. This thing made it through the winter. Pretty much no problems at all. The poly held up really well. We just kept the snow off it, kept the side cleared. The wood frame, everything is holding up really good so far. So we're really happy with it, and only thing that has happened is our bottom cable that we had our trellis on. I just had one screw in this bottom one for some reason, and that screw snapped. So I'm just going to loosen it up on that side and then put a couple screws in there, and we should be pretty much good to go for this thing.
I mean, what is a green bean stalk made of? Because look at how incredibly...
Steel.
Steel?
Steel.
Silk?
Steel.
Oh. They're incredibly strong. They don't... I mean, they just don't even break. I remember in Oregon, these were brittle by the next year. I could just...
Well, that's what Native Americans used to make arrowheads out of.
You did not use these. These use obsidian. Okay, we finally finished. We got most of the string down that we didn't want. And I think this year it's going to be a little bit easier, less, you know, for us to do, because we're going to be moving a lot of the vines and the things that need better pollination outside. We have a little bit of spent grain left for the chicken, so we're going to head over and do that. Eric finished unloading the trailer, and I was just going to take a moment to show you guys what we feed our chickens. I've shown it in the past, but it's a combination of oats, peas, we have sunflower seeds, some red winter wheat, and then we also have barley, but we're going to be feeding them a lot less barley since we now can get spent barley, so we're not going to be putting that in their feed during the summer. We like to soak the chickens' feed. This has only been soaked for a day. I usually like to soak it for a few days, and we'll probably get back into the routine of that, but during the winter it's a little bit harder because their food will freeze. Next up on our list, we have to clean out the chicken coop because that is the straw and all of the droppings that have been in there all winter, so we are going to be moving that over to the high tunnel. We haven't collected eggs today, and there's 2 chickens trying to lay. She's trying to lay. This one's sitting on a nest. And this is our Icelandic chicken. And she's not broody, but all of our chickens, all of our Icelandic chickens have been doing that, almost all of them. And those are signs that mean they're probably going to go broody. So we're hoping for a handful of them to do that. We have 15 of them, and we'd really like to have a few batches of chicks this year. I don't know how many we're going to get, but like I said again, every time we come in here, these chickens are sitting on the nests for hours. If you're unfamiliar with the term broody, that just means it's a hen that wants to sit on her eggs and raise babies, basically. And that's why we got the Icelandics, because we don't want to buy chicks every year. And for many other reasons. They're a really, really great type of chicken. They're a land race. Let's check for eggs. So I'm not going to take the eggs out from underneath her because she's clearly agitated. But I think there's about 6 eggs underneath her. So I think I counted 10 earlier today. There's 2 here and 3 in the last one. So that's 7 for right now. And Eric and I have gotten wooden eggs this year for the chickens, not just to help them lay more, but honestly it was to help them, encourage them to go broody. So we've been finding they really like the nests that have those wooden eggs in them. This is the green ones. This way out, unfortunately. Yeah, it's gonna break. I need a shovel. So the droppings have a lot of moisture in them, and that's why they're frozen. We kind of anticipated that. However, we have a really thick bedding of straw and shavings underneath, so nothing's wet on the ground, if that makes sense, on the floor. So I'm just kind of clumping it, and we're going to be removing it. I may in fact leave some of the straw. That looks like it's in good condition. I think we spread some of that not too long ago. This is mainly what I'm after. I want this for the garden. So our chicken poop is nitrogen and it's mixed with straw, which is carbon. So it's a really good ratio for gardening. And you've probably read that horse manure and chicken manure is really hot, high in nitrogen. That's definitely true. The way I have found to use it fresh is to use minimal amounts and to bury it. So we're going to be adding quite a bit more soil and aged compost on top. And that way this will actually break down way underneath, the plant's roots and all of that. So it's not actually going to be closer to the surface of the plants, and we definitely don't need to worry about contamination or anything like that. When we were cleaning out the coop, we realized that we have way too much chicken manure in there, and we're actually going to be saving the rest of it. I think there's still like 3/4 or more. We're going to be saving it for the outside garden, so that probably won't be for another 2 months or so, and we'll spread that all out there. And again, that's just because I don't want to put more than what we have in here. I think it'll be a little bit too much for this area. Okay, we are all done with the high tunnel for the day, and I wanted to wrap up just a few things. The first thing I wanted to go over is what we're going to be adding to these rows, as the season goes on. So we want to add some aged compost, some soil, and pretty much go from there. We have a lot of these amendments already, and that's what type of gardening we like to do. It is most commonly referred to as lasagna gardening, and it's basically where you layer amendments on with soil, and you do it in layers of brown and green, kind of alternating. And there is a specific recipe, but we kind of use what we have available or what we can find locally. And I also personally am a huge fan of straw. I love straw. We've used it for years and had really good results with it. So that's most closely what type of gardening we're doing. And it also naturally means that you're doing no dig. So really all that means is that you're not tilling your soil every year. That's a common practice, but when you leave the soil intact, that includes the roots too of the plants. when you leave that soil intact in the roots, you leave all of the organisms in there, you know, in their little communities doing their thing. So you're not disturbing them. And we've found that that also promotes really healthy plants. And that's why a lot of the times you'll see we'll just come along and nip plants rather than rip out the roots. And we will also just layer back in the plant material itself. I was a little concerned with this method for Alaska because a lot of the times our ground is totally frozen, like half the time out of the year. And that just means that the process of breaking down is going to take longer. It's going to be postponed. But we found that last year the garden did pretty well. We were pretty excited about it. And I foresee that it should do fine in the future, or at least that's what I'm hoping. And I think as long as we continue to add compost and have soil for the plants to grow in, and it's not just these unbroken down layers, then we should be pretty solid. And on another note, I wanted to mention what Eric and I are using this high tunnel for right now. You know, we get a lot of questions about using it in the winter, you know, or can we heat it, things like that. And we've kind of looked into options of that, but I don't think we're going to go that route. I really think that we're just going to keep it for growing in the summer and kind of extending the season a little bit, but also mainly just being warmer for the crops that really like that extra heat. So what we've been doing with our transplants that we've started, we have been bringing them out here kind of like as a daycare during the day when it gets warm. I wait until it's above freezing and they can be out here pretty much all day until we get back down below freezing. Well, we've been doing that for 2 weeks, and the other night I totally messed up, and I've never done it before, but of course I'm sure that had to happen, you know, had to change one point. And I had our seedlings out here. I had a lot of herbs that we had started, our onions, and didn't remember to bring them in until about 12:30 at night when I realized in bed, right before we went to bed, that the seeds were still outside, or the transplants were still outside. So we went out here, and unfortunately pretty much all of them were gone. They're just not able to handle that type of frost. It was about 16 degrees in the high tunnel. So I totally messed up. I lost probably about 80 plants. I've restarted some of them. You know, some of the onions and a few of the hardier ones did survive, but very few. And it really just kind of sucked. It was really disheartening. I seriously contemplated whether I wanted to garden this year or not, but I wanted to keep pushing through and look on the positive side of things. And again, it's not too late to restart some of that stuff, so I went ahead and did that. Also on the bright side, all our peppers, tomatoes, the warm crops, those are all inside, so you know, nothing, there was no losses there with that. But I guess that's just a good reminder for myself and maybe for others that sometimes we try to be a little extreme with gardening and try things that don't grow well where we live, or you know, maybe things that we really have to micromanage. And that's really what that is. I mean, we have to micromanage those plants when we bring them out and back in and out and back in for, you know, months at a time, basically, because we're still about 2 months, maybe 6 weeks away from our last frost. So we're still getting single digits at night some nights, and that's just, it's just way too cold for a lot of those plants. They can't tolerate it. So with that, we hope you guys do continue to follow us this gardening season, and we look forward to it. I'm sure there will be lots of things we'll learn, and hopefully we'll have a really awesome garden again this year. Thank you guys for watching, and we will see you next time. She's gonna jump for you.